Hi, I'm Bob.
And I'm Sherry.
And this is Mostly Politics with Bob and Sherry.
Welcome to the show. So today we want to welcome the candidate for State Representative in PA House District 20, Mr. Tony Moreno.
Hello, everybody. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Okay, I want to tell you guys a little bit about Tony. Tony Moreno was born in Stanton, California. He joined the Army at 17 years old, served as an airborne military police paratrooper. Tony married his wife, Patty, who was also in the Army. She was from Youngstown, so they lived there after Tony's enlistment was completed. He attended the police academy and received several offers, and he chose the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police, where he rose to detective. After 24 years with the Pittsburgh Police, he became a private detective and entered politics with a run for Pittsburgh mayor in the 2021 primary and general election. From my reading, Tony has done extensive volunteer work for the betterment of the community. My general sense is that he used his position and network as a police detective to invest in the community and to give back, you might say. Not unlike what we see from professional athletes, but more extensively and with less public promotion. How'd I do, Tony? Do you want to correct anything or add to it?
No, it's very good, except for my wife is a born and raised Pittsburgher from the north side.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when I left the Army, I had come through Youngstown into Pittsburgh, so that's why that part is in my bio. But no, my wife's a proud north sider and wears it well.
Well, that's a quite impressive of a bio, Tony. So
it's strange putting your life down on paper. It makes you self-reflect, and it goes all the way back. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good. All right, so you're running for state rep in PA House District 20. Can you explain what areas and municipality are in District 20?
After the redistricting, it took a little bit away, but that covers Avalon, Bellevue, wards. There's wards in Pittsburgh's north side, Ross Township, and Westview. And Ross Township split a little bit through down the middle almost with some of their wards. But those are the areas that I will be covering.
So, Tony, a question that we have is what motivates you to run for public office generally and specifically this time for the state representative in your district?
Coming out of police work, police officers, we are very focused. We have a sense of benevolence and justice, and we rate very highly in those areas. So we go out, we want to help people, we want to fix problems and bring justice to victims and bring lawbreakers to justice. And once we get involved, at least for me, I started realizing that me throwing my cape on and being a police officer wasn't fixing the problems. All we were doing was responding to crime and people with issues. And the things that needed to be done to help them were not being done. And that's when I talk about self-reflection, it's one of those major things that you look at what your career covered. I did 24 years in the police department, and I did very well. I was very successful doing police work. But the things didn't change from the time I started in 94 to the time I retired in 2018. It was the same exact problems. So when I look back and I saw where those problems were coming from, it all leads back to government and how they spend our money and how they treat their constituents. And that's what got me involved in the process. Just go to the root of the problem and start fixing it from there. And boy, did I find out a lot about how our government runs and just how horribly it functions and why we're in the state that we're in. So that's basically what drove me to start into this. And now that I'm in, I have to be a part of it so we can get things done the right way and get people represented and make sure our dollars are spent correctly.
Can you give us some examples of how you say the government runs poorly that you saw from the inside?
I was under the false pretense that we are electing people that were experts in certain areas, that they were bringing expertise to government, that these folks were successful in life, generally had our well-being in representing us. I'll just use me, in representing me. When I started to see exactly what was going on in government and why these things weren't being put forward as stated. For instance, I'll just go to my sweet spot in the police department. I knew in the police department that the best and brightest and the most successful weren't getting promoted. That the promotions inside our police department were done very politically, which, you learn to operate around it. There were goals that I needed to achieve in the police department, and I achieved them without any of those kind of connections or without the nepotism or the favoritism. It's a longer haul, but I got there. I started to realize everywhere in the city government was modeled the same way as the police department. People that did favors to gain favors, that paid their way into positions or made promises for exchange, quid pro quos that we've been hearing so much about. That's how people got moved into elected positions. As you know, or maybe you don't, I started this in the Democrat Party because I was a registered Democrat in the city of Pittsburgh, because that's how we operate. There was no other government to vote for. In my police union, I did research on candidates because we had to figure out which candidates were the best ones for our union jobs. That's where I started to learn about some of these folks, and they're not people that have become experts in any field. The person who is in charge of PWSA in the city of Pittsburgh went to college as a political science major. He then got a job as the public relations person for a water company in Washington, D.C. After 2 years there, he became the public relations person in the city of Pittsburgh because his family is friends with Dan Gilman, who was the chief of staff under Bill Peduto. Will Pickering became the head of PWSA, having never put a shovel in the ground, having never looked at any charts or any kind of professional aspects of water or sewage. He runs it. The entire city runs that way. So these are put in place by elected officials. The elected officials don't have any expertise in any of these things. They're moved politically. So if you are okay with doing whatever the party tells you, and this is a quote coming from now Mayor Ed Gainey, party will always come before people. We have to make sure the party's sound and we keep the party intact. And the people didn't like that. So that's something that I learned, and that's why I'm here. I bring 24 years of a career, a successful career. I've done things in my life. People right now, they haven't done things.
So at the you're now running for state office, and at the state level, we have the public school system that's run pretty much in an arm of the state. So I think Sherry had some questions about schools.
Yes, I do have some questions about schools. So nationally, we have heard about critical race theory. Just want to know what your thoughts on that, because on one side of the aisle, they disagree with teaching critical race theory. On the other side of the aisle, they think teaching critical race theory will help racial equity. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a complete farce, and it has no place in our school. Any sort of reference to that, no matter what they call it, needs to be addressed and removed from our educational process. Critical race theory, running for mayor, it was presented to me in many different venues, and there is no positive to any of it. I am biracial. I am Mexican and Native American, Scottish, a little bit of Irish, and a whole lot of Welsh. I come from Southern California. So where I was raised, if you look at me, I look more like my mother. I have green eyes, I'm very light. But I was the only white kid in a predominantly Mexican neighborhood, and nobody even really knew. We just all grew up. And then I grew up in a very integrated Southern California. So when I came here, I realized, wow, there are a lot of racial issues here that need to be addressed, but saying that the critical race theory model, teaching our children that we should treat each other differently because the color of our skin or our ethnicities, there's just no place for it in total. So I'm completely against it. I would do everything I could to stop funding of it, to find out who's pushing it and remove them from any sense or position of authority.
And you have mentioned that your wife grew up and is a proud North Sider of Pittsburgh, and that's a pretty diverse neighborhood of Pittsburgh as well.
Yes,
right?
The city schools here in the city of Pittsburgh are an absolute abject failure. Matter of fact, they're the worst in the state. We have the worst school district. Right now, they spend $36,000 per student, and the state average is $16,000 per student. The first thing that the new school board president in the city of Pittsburgh did was say that we need to raise school taxes. Well, there's a huge disconnect there. We have school board members. They're all of them are lockstep, coming from the Democrat Party, pushing critical race theory. They are now pushing the transgender sexualization. That's already been in play. My kid went to city schools. They were at the most progressive performing arts in Kappa. My son was a drummer. He was proud to have gotten into this. It's a very prestigious school. But when they started teaching these things, we had to remove them. And we sent them back to private school because the city schools just waste money. They push agendas that the parents aren't a part of. I believe in school choice. I don't want what happened in the city of Pittsburgh school district to come out to these other outlying areas and have them fail also. There's no time for experimenting with our children. Every year that passes, they lose out on being better Americans.
Well, follow up with that question. Recently, there's a huge controversy of the transgender athlete Leah Thompson participating in biological female sports and won championships in the swimming competition. And some people are celebrating it and some people are completely against it. What are your thoughts on transgender female participating in biological female sports?
I think it's an absolute attack on women. They had to enact Title IX to give women a fair shake in the athletic process of giving, what's the word? When you get a scholarship. So college sports runs on that money. We all know it. It's not in question. The basketball and football teams run college sports. But that's all they were focusing on. And, women are a part of the collegiate atmosphere, and they deserve the same treatment and the same respect and the same opportunities. Well, now you have this individual, and let's be very clear, this has nothing to do with how anybody decides they want to live their life. You live your life however you want. I have nothing to say about it. But when you start taking money funded through tax dollars and you start issuing scholarships, and you have women who train their entire lives, for the most part, to compete, and they become at the top of their game, and you have, is it Leah Thompson?
Yes,
Is
Leah
that the name?
Thompson.
Am I saying that correctly?
It's her name, yes. Mm-hmm.
Come in and now decide that this is where they want to compete. All of those women's lives were just altered. I'll give you an example. Nobody says this, and I don't understand why. If you look at Leah Thompson's record in the pool, yes, she won championships by massive amounts of time. But when you match it up against the men's championship, same tournament, but the men's side, Leah Thompson would not have even made the top 50, let alone place or win anything. The times at the end, the 50th qualifier was 6 seconds faster than Leah Thompson's championship time. So that to me tells me all I need to know. If you are going to have an athlete come in, it should be the same gender that they were born, because that is fair.
So, as a state representative, Tony, what can you do? You seem passionate about the school issues. What could you do to help improve on these issues in our schools?
Well, we'd have to individually go in and find out where the waste is. Where are we wasting money? Where the failures are, and go directly after them. I know that there's going to be teachers out there that don't like it, but if those teachers are happy with the outcome of their students, then we have to have a whole different conversation. School choice, I believe, is one of the answers. We need to take the money that's given to the education system out of our tax dollars and put it into the hands of the parents of the children who are going to get educated. Let them find the best performing areas and let them send their kids to school. I pay an extraordinary amount of money to send my kids to private school because I refuse to send them to a failing Pittsburgh public school system. There's people that are mad at me because I did that. I do not care. You deserve to have your children's education to be the highest that you can achieve. And you do whatever you can to have it. When you have a governmental process that removes the ability for the parent to pick where their children goes, that's a broken process because they're stuck. If someone didn't have the ability that my wife and I has put forth to get their children out, they're stuck where they're at. And that's just not fair. It's not right, and they deserve better. Everybody should have a choice on where their kids go to school, and it should be the best available.
Well, following up, let's get on a different subject. Starting in 2020, we heard calls for defunding the police, and you have a clearly extensive law enforcement background. What was your thoughts and position on defunding the police or reimagine the funding of police?
Well, it's a horrible idea. It's ungodly first. You know, our authority comes from God, whatever God it is you might want to worship. The one that I worship and believe in says that we should respect our government and we pay taxes in order to fund the people that are going to run our government. To say that we need to defund the police is unsafe and unethical. To reallocate funds is a lie. Reimagining the police is whatever you want it to be. The police officers have one job, and that's to protect and serve. We do everything as police officers. They do. I'm sorry, I've been retired and I still say that. The reason that this has happened is because the people that are bringing this forth do not like the rules. They don't like playing by the rules. They don't like laws. And they don't have the ability to go in and change the laws. So any elected official that is proposing this is proposing it because they can't come in and tell the general public their ideas and convince them that their ideas are better ideas, such as replacing police officers on 911 calls of emergency with social workers. It's just a farce. It's not safe, and it's not possible. 911 calls go to police officers because it's dangerous. Nobody ever calls 911 and says, I would like a police officer to come to my house, or a medic or a firefighter come to my house because I'm having the best day of my life. Generally, somebody calls 911 because the worst thing that's happened in their life is currently happening and they can't fix it. So a police officer comes in, has to make sure it's safe, figure out what the problem is, find a quick resolution, get them, the 2 or 3 or however many people involved, to agree that they are going to not end in violence and they're going to try to work it out, and then go to the next call. The proposition that the police officers coming in and doing harm to people that are mentally ill or that need help is horrible. It's a lie that's force-fed through the media, through the politicians, and through activists. When you look at the numbers, all the numbers that they do are made up or wishful thinking. The actual numbers that come through the police departments show that that is not the case. And in fact, this is where my expertise lies. There's a way that we can intercede mental health work and mental health services with the police officers. We do it now. My wife, Dr. Paloka, was in charge of running a program called Crisis Intervention Team Training. It was the state model for mental health training in Pennsylvania. It's an international program in the city of Pittsburgh. She trained all Allegheny County police officers and other individuals like PAT bus drivers on how to do this. And it's just a basic recognition of when somebody is acting out, how to recognize somebody that's having a mental illness, how to act towards them, and how to get them help. It's a 40-hour course, and it's fantastic. You would never know that that's already in progress because they don't tell you. It's not, their proposition is not made to truly get people that are suffering from mental illness help. The proposition is to handcuff the police officer and take away the police officer from the community. They don't like obeying rules and laws, so they put in policies, they being the politicians, put in policies that remove the police officer. So I'm completely against it. There are good, solid answers on how to take care of these problems because, trust me, there are problems. But the way they propose it is a complete and absolute failure. We're watching it in the city of Pittsburgh, and I aim to prevent that in my outlying areas.
Do you do you recognize an increase in crime in our cities, and do you attribute that directly to the environment the police are now in?
Absolutely. There's it's another farce. They'll try to tell you that homicides are down even before the pandemic. And I could speak in terms of before COVID-19 and the false pandemic. There was a crime spike because the city of Pittsburgh had taken the defunding the police through their policies already. We noticed it throughout the country. They just named it something else during the COVID pandemic shutdowns. They were taking police officers and telling them that they were not to enforce minor crimes. They would not define what minor crimes were, but they didn't want them arresting anybody. You're not allowed to arrest anybody for minor crimes such as trespassing, minor assaults, minor thefts. That's already a policy in the city of Pittsburgh. Shoplifting. You're not allowed to physically arrest people for that. And if there's a felony committed, you're not allowed to actually go and arrest that person and bring them in on your own accord that you're trained to do, that you have the legal ability to do. City policy says that you have to call an on-duty district attorney and get permission. So there's things that were already enacted in the city of Pittsburgh. They just put a label on it, and now it's nationwide. So they are able to do that through administration. So the elected official picks the administrators in the police department. The administrators then pick the supervisors enact the policies, and the poor police officer on the ground, who is sworn to protect and serve and obey all the laws of the Commonwealth, all the policies and rules of the city, and the Constitution, are now being told you're not allowed to do that. So there's confusion on the street, people are suffering by it, and crime is going up. Victims are not being compensated. People are being let out of jail, and it's all policy. It could stop immediately. There is a way to address this, and they're just not doing it.
Well, Tony, change subject real quick. You have mentioned, and we know you're a lifelong Democrat. You recently changed to Republican. Can you tell the voters and the viewers what made you think that you are the best candidate to represent your party into the general election?
Because I have absolutely no patience for the current state of politics and the lies, the horrible way that they treat people. The way that they lie to us is just so unacceptable, I can't take it. I spent a career in interviewing people and trying to figure out what drives somebody to commit a crime. And when I talk to our current elected class, it's like I'm talking to these criminals. Everything that they tell you is through a deceptive lens. They don't say anything that they're going to do or that they've done. It's just very difficult for me to accept that. So coming in, I was very non-political. I registered the way I had to register so I could vote for people, and that was the Democrat Party in the city of Pittsburgh. But I never identified politically that way. I knew I wasn't an activist. I knew I didn't. I was not a pro-choice supporter. I was a Democrat by label, but I'm a conservative. You know, I love God. I believe in absolute freedoms. I'm a 2A person. There is really no real gun law that is appropriate. I believe in life. I believe in saving our babies. There's just, that's how I grew up. So it's very natural for me to be Republican. And now I come over and I see the Republican side, I see that they're not that well inclined either. It's this political class that needs to end, and I'm so happy to be a part of it with everybody. Sherry, I met you at political functions because we were people that were living our lives, and government just came in and told us how we were going to live. And I went, no, you're not. You're not coming for me. This is America, and you're not going to do it. And I went to my politicians, and they were all singing the same song. And so how do you change it? And I got involved politically, and I saw how they try to shut you out and how hard they make it to run and how they bring people up and they teach them to lie and deceive. And I can't do that. So I've met people that want to run for positions, and I want to help them. I want to build our Republican committee so we can really be a part. I want to be a part of how we change and how we take back our communities. So it was a tremendous learning curve, but now I'm in it and I'm better at it than they are. I am going to tell you the truth when I find it. I am going to let everybody know how I intend on taking care of it. And if there's something that is wrong in what I'm doing, I'm going to come and I'm going to find out from the people that I represent just exactly what we need to do to change how we're going forward. It's not my ideas, it's the people I represent. And that's what I aim to do. I'm just bringing my life to politics and saying deal with it. One other reason that I think it's me is because we can't find people willing to stand up to what's going on in this world, in our communities. They're afraid of being canceled. They're afraid of people coming to their porches. They're afraid of being stopped in the middle of the street. Well, my life has brought me to this point because I've already had to suffer through those things, being a police officer. I've been called everything you could possibly be called. I've been attacked for everything you could possibly attack for. I was in the military. You know, I was a United States Army airborne combat veteran. I have experienced all of those things and have continued to come out on the better end because I trust in God, I trust in my family and our beliefs, and no matter what, we'll always be okay. So that's why I feel like I am the best choice here.
One of the things I want to ask, this could be a surprise question for you. We're actually was contacted by one of your supporters yesterday, knowing we're going to be interviewing you today. The supporter was contacted us, and she said she was called by a lady named Amanda DeGregory. And Amanda DeGregory was questioning the legitimacy of her signature on your petition. And are you aware of this?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that's what's going on right now. This goes to a bigger problem, and I'm going to tell you this quick story. It's very involved, but I think I can shrink it down for you and keep it interesting so people don't go to sleep listening to this. There is an edict here in Western Pennsylvania, generally in the Pittsburgh area, that Republicans don't have a chance to win and that's why Republicans don't run. Well, what I've learned is inside the Democrat Party, there's a huge fight, and it's the socialist, communist, progressives are taking over the regular working blue-collar Democrats, and they don't like it. And they're afraid to stand up because they're afraid of being canceled or not elected because they can't stand on their own value system, so they find themselves lining up with the socialists, which is driving a lot of people away. When I was running, I made it very clear that I would not stand arm in arm with socialists, people who are claiming they were socialists, next to me running in the Democrat Party. That created a conflict, and we can see it now. So now we don't run Republicans. Well, we're starting to run Republicans, and you know what it does? It makes the fake Republicans, the fake conservatives reveal themselves. So I put my name in the hat, and I get people to sign my petitions, and I circulate these petitions through folks that want to help. And these are folks in their own communities. And suddenly, I start getting phone calls that this Amanda is saying that she works for Allegheny County and is going over petitions and wants to know if they really signed a petition for Tony Moreno. And they said, yes, I did. And they were like, hey, they would call and say, is this normal? And I would say, absolutely not. It's not normal. Well, we find out through our investigative lenses that Amanda DeGregory is a bartender at Stage AE, does not work for Allegheny County, but she is the paid campaign manager of Deb Gross. Deb Gross is the Lawrenceville councilwoman in the city of Pittsburgh. She also worked on the campaigns of Emily Kincaid, Sarah Inamorado, and is supported with Bethany Hallam and the entire Socialist Democrat group. Why that is important is because one of the people that are in that group, hold on, I have to make sure this is straight. She is a council person in Bellevue, and her husband is a registered Republican and is a firefighter in Bellevue. There is a registered Republican council person by the name of Hurday, Hyrda, Tom Hurday. These two Republicans filed a challenge against my petitions. There was no Republican primary against me. There was no Republican that was getting signatures against me. So why these two gentlemen decided to challenge my petitions is beyond me. But they did. So I did a little research, and they are connected to Emily Kincaid. She is saying this Amanda is saying that she works for the county. She doesn't. And she took all that information, forwarded it to this person's name. I'm going to have to look it up. It's Svetic. I have it. Regardless, it's not important to you guys. What's important is these Republicans revealed themselves, that they're challenging me, and they're connected to the Democrat socialists, directly connected. They cohort together. They go out and they have meet and greets together. And now they're challenging a real true conservative, and they have R's behind their name, and they're elected officials. So it's a problem. I don't think that we are going to have an issue. I think we're going to go forward and be victorious. I have a hearing on Thursday. A few of the people that circulated petitions for me have been subpoenaed illegally because they weren't signed. But that's okay. It's better off if we show up and go fight our fight. So that we have to really make sure that we pay attention to shows like yours. And I appreciate and thank you so much for having me, because this is where it really comes out. You get to ask the candidates questions and vet them for everybody to see. Ask me the hard questions, I'll answer you. And that's just the way it's supposed to be.
Well, you've certainly piqued my interest, so I'd love to hear the result of these subpoenas and the action that is this stuff in the news? Is this being reported in the news?
No. I found out yesterday. There was a flurry of phone calls. I was trying to figure out who it was. We found out very quickly how this circles around to, it really comes from Nick Mastros, who's the business owner in the lower north side of Allegheny Sandwich Shop. He lives in Ross. Well, Nick's wife is on Ross Council, or connected to Ross Council, who is connected to Emily Kincaid, Amanda DeGregory, Jennifer Slavic is her name. She's the council person. And her husband is Tom Slavic, and he's the one that, Republican, which is just preposterous to me, challenging my petitions. So we're going to go forward. We have well more than enough signatures. We had 419. And that's from people just coming out for me. I didn't think I was going to be able to get enough because of the weather and just how short of a time we had, but we did. And we've created a problem for them. So it's important what you guys do. Vet them. And I will. I'll let you guys know what happens after Thursday. Because I'm going to need it. If they for some reason do throw out my petitions, I'm going to need a big write-in push. But I don't anticipate that. I think we're going to win.
Yeah, so you need 300 verified signatures. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, would you come back once you finish your battle with this challenge thing? Would you come back when you go into general? We will invite your opponent. Who is your opponent? Is that Emily Kincaid?
Right now, Emily Kincaid and Nick Mastros are in a primary on the Democrat side.
Okay.
So we'll have to see how that plays out. I expect that Emily Kincaid will win her primary. I know how this whole process works. I know where they found Nick and why they found him. So it'll be interesting to see. And it's a positive for us. It's a positive for our party. The Republican Party's growing. And it's fun to be a part of it, but it's maddening also because we need to start changing how our government works.
Thank you so much once again for coming on.
I'll come back anytime you ask me.
All right.
Thank you so much.